Hello. I've been asked by, I don't know, I never checked the YouTube numbers, but I'll assume by now we have 1 million followers or something like that. And they've asked me, begged me, can you do 2 chapters? That's how great and into your book we are. So I will do this one time. So I'm going to read from today from the Never Again Means Never Again's chapter 8 and 9. Okay. Chapter 8. The Jews did not kill Jesus. Chapter 9. Monsters in Boots. The quote up top, quote, the greater the crime perpetrated by the leadership, the less likely it is that the people will ever believe their leaders to be capable of perpetrating such an event. Adolf Hitler. All right, so we are in the blue book, which is the hardcore book, and this comes up in the next couple chapters that are rough. So this could be like a little too much to some people. Okay. Chapter 9. We've discussed the mind fuckery that influenced the Germans to carry out the atrocities, the carrot and the stick approach to bending the people to Hitler's will. Stand with him, and you'll be able to feed your children, keep a roof over your head. Stand against him and die. Still, it boggles the mind that German soldiers or officers could stomach their duties. Imagine these recruits monitoring and interacting with imprisoned men and women daily, while those poor souls were under 80 pounds or freezing to death right in front of them. It must have taken some mighty brainwashing to compel soldiers to inflict constant beatings as Jews and other prisoners slaved and labored in the camps. How could the soldiers tolerate the smell? The odor must have been indescribable. Surely the gore, oozing wounds, blood, shit, piss, sweat, and vomit got to them. Or maybe they relished in it, delighted the sounds, the sights, and the odor of innocent men, women, and children meeting their demise. Other soldiers of a more decent variety were probably on the verge of a moral crisis and mental breakdown. Anyone with a scrap of honor would have had PTSD from working in the camps. Remember, these weren't small rogue units who went out on their own and attempted vigilante justice or black ops. Nope. These groups were formed under and given instructions from the top guys of the Nazi parties. Shit, they were encouraged, these enlisted units, and always looked for ways to expand them. If you're in some type of hate group, don't answer yet. After you've read this chapter and the following few chapters, I wonder if that's how you want your top military advisors to lead and soldiers to implement such heinous atrocities. After coming to power, Hitler had the uncanny ability to find other psychos who recruited new psychos who ended up finding more psychos. Why were their recruitment tactics so successful on such a large scale? How could the term Stockholm Syndrome be coined before the words Nazi Syndrome? We know those sick fucking cowards in Germany killed over 6 million Jews. And I've already mentioned that we weren't the only minority. The Nazis believed that Aryans were a master race, and German children learned this in school. Grown ups were re educated about their role in the world and their superiority as long as they looked the part. Well, with the exception of ugly ass Hitler and his posse of killers who weren't exactly blonde and blue eyed. Who on earth would ever consider Hitler, Himmler, Goebbels, Hess, Goering, and Eichmann of Aryan descent? Those are some of the ugliest, non athletic, dark haired, small dick knuckle draggers and have about as much Aryan in them as a toad. And these guys were running the quote white bread show. In order to explain the various levels of atrocities committed by the Nazis, I categorize them to hopefully explain their levels of horror against their own civilians to the levels of horror committed against other countries' civilians and militaries. I use an international unit of measure that would not be needed for translation in foreign language. I'm going to use the cocksucker scale. Now, the cocksucker scale is a scale from 1 to 10, like North Korea is a 1, all bark, no bite, and Hitler, who holds the highest number that cannot be superseded, is a 10. For perspective, I gave Genghis Khan an 8. I had to cut back on military units that I was going to highlight, as this chapter would have been 1,000 pages. Here, I focus on the big three and cover the fun loving, congenial, and friendly units of the Nazis that were used to guard Hitler and his top henchmen. These Nazi actions of torturing, raping, false imprisonment, looting, and murder were not only allowed, but encouraged by Hitler. Their edicts, roles, and jobs came from the top and were carried out by all to protect him. So, without further ado, let me present the monsters in boots, better known as the Gestapo, the SS, and the SA, whose jobs were to murder and carry out any order given to them by Hitler and his henchmen by any means necessary. This is but a small sample. And neo Nazis, feel free to look this up for your own fucked up purposes, as there are plenty. It sickens me to make mention of these groups, but unfortunately, most members of hate groups acknowledge that Nazis killed Jews and other civilians, but I'm not so sure they understand how. I hope you anti Semites read every word in the next few chapters. When finished, ask yourself if you're sure that being a Nazi is what you truly identify with. Could you have been in any of these units and carried out direct orders? I fucking hope not. The Gestapo, SS, and SA all played different roles and were each instrumental in Hitler's rise to power and keeping power. These three units were mainly an internal force, example like your local police, state police, and federal. Okay, the Sturmabteilung, or the SA. The SA was formed in 1921 by Adolf Hitler himself and a couple of other psychos as the initial paramilitary wing of the Nazi Party. Also referred to as stormtroopers or brown troops, they protected Nazi rallies, roughened up citizens, and assaulted political foes. Eventually, they were organized into a pseudotype army. In 1933, the SA had around 3 million soldiers and was growing at a rapid pace. Eventually, Hitler became extremely nervous that the SA could easily stage a coup, so he began using the SS and felt they were better suited to carry out his psychotic policies and criminal acts. Internal fighting from the top leaders erupted about what to do with the SA. Some of the leaders didn't want to absorb into the German military. With ongoing internal strife, a solution needed to be made. So, what do you think the solution would be for the men who were with the Nazi Party from the beginning or very early on? Demotion, transfer, dismissal? Hitler called a meeting for the top 200 or so leaders of the SA and placed them all under arrest. Mind you, if it needs repeating, but a lot of the top guys of the SA had been with Hitler from the beginning, extremely loyal, and did what was needed to protect Hitler and others. The 200 were simply shot and killed. Ernst Röhm was with the SA from the start and later became head of the SA. He was supposedly Hitler's good friend, but so what? Ernst was the start of a long list of soon to be Hitler's ex good friends. Hitler had him murdered too. The SA was the unit directly involved in the Night of the Long Knives in 1934 in Kristallnacht, showing outright contempt, destruction, looting, and murder of Germany's Jewish citizens. Soon after the SA was overshadowed and gave rise to the SS, it was well known that Röhm was gay, and he and Hitler spent a lot of time together. Point being, I think both of them would have loved this rating. Cocksucker rating for them, 4. The Schutzstaffel, or SS. The SS was created in 1925 to serve as Hitler's personal bodyguards. These dudes were rabidly anti-Semite Germans, which is why the SS was so feared throughout Germany. These SS psychos were led by another fucking whack job, Heinrich Himmler. Himmler was a goofy, real goofy looking motherfucker. The SS consisted of two main units, the Allgemeine SS and the Waffen SS. The Allgemeine SS was responsible for enforcing the racial policy of Nazi Germany and general policing. The Waffen SS consisted of combat units within the Nazi military. And of course, the SS wouldn't be complete until they had the Totenkopfbahn SS. In English, means the Death Heads unit. End quote. This unit was responsible for running concentration camps and extermination camps. There were also two subdivisions of the SS, the Gestapo and the SD. Every one of these assholes would have been more than happy to take Hitler's little dick in any hole in their bodies. And fortunately for Himmler, it was an easy fit. That was the first known saying of, it's a win-win. The SS was the organization most responsible for the deaths of Jews and other innocent victims. By the way, when Himmler took over the SS, he instituted strict Aryan policies in order to join the SS as spelled out in the Nuremberg laws and tried to implement physical criteria based on height and appearance. Good idea. Coming from the ugliest motherfucker in Europe. Anyway, more than half were admitted who didn't meet Hitler's criteria that he personally never, ever, ever would have passed. The SS was chosen to implement the final solution, and they were the main group responsible for the institutional murder and democide, murder by government, of more than 20 million people. They murdered anyone who simply disagreed with them ideologically. They murdered Jews, Slavs, Romani, plenty of other racial or ethnic groups. They murdered mentally or physically handicapped, homosexuals, political dissidents, members of trade unions, clergy of all faiths, Jehovah's Witnesses, Freemasons, communists, fucking Rotary Club members, as well as obtaining for themselves an absolute shitload of war crimes. Outside of hair fuckface, the SS is most responsible for carrying out the actions of the Holocaust. Cocksucker rating? 9. The Gestapo. The Gestapo was the secret police created by Hermann Goering in 1933. Basically, it combined Russia's political police forces into one group. Oh, you Aryans would have loved these guys. One of their main roles was to protect the regime from racial and political enemies, but their main responsibilities were coordinating the deportation of Jews to ghettos, concentration camps, killing sites, and killing centers. They were the official secret police in Germany and in any occupied lands Germany invaded. In 1936, a law was passed that the Gestapo could operate without judicial review, meaning they were above the law. So, what do you think they did? They could kick your ass, torture you, or even murder you without any recourse. They could imprison anyone without cause. They could steal your dog. They could walk in your house and use your toilet. Nice way for the citizens of Germany to live. Let me sum up these cocksuckers. This is another group of low esteem assholes who were granted 100% immunity to carry out orders from other sick psychotic assholes. These officers found out the only way for them to advance in rank was to do their own sick psychotic confrontations. This, quote, police force, unquote, became Hitler's wet dream and was used to carry out many atrocities. I cannot and will never be able to wrap my head around the atrocities these three terrorist organizations committed, but it does explain the position ordinary Germans found themselves in. After the Treaty of Versailles, Hitler held sway over the German people due to a mix of charming words and promises made. Then he surrounded them with a scary, violent, and authoritarian regime. In this manner, Hitler and his minions bulldozed the country, an educated country, into either looking the other way or participating, as an entire race was systematically exterminated. Fear, intimidation, brutality, and lies, that was Hitler's control mechanism. Just another nightmare in a long line of psychotic institutions that murdered, tortured, raped, etc., 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 all in the name of Nazism, whatever the fuck that means. Cocksucker ranking, 8. Thank you.